Breaking news, the liberal district attorney Fani Willis, who went after Donald Trump in Georgia, just got kicked off the case. Georgia's Court of Appeals has just disqualified her from prosecuting the 2020 election case against Donald Trump and his co-defendants. They are citing conflict of interest. Well, no kidding. The court began looking into whether Willis should continue the case after that romantic relationship with the ex-prosecutor Nathan Wade came to light. The court said this: while we recognize that an appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. Yeah, well, she put in there he was making more than anybody else on the staff, and his resume didn't really match up what his job was going to be to go after Trump. There's that. The court did not outright, though, dismiss this case. It will now be up to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia to find another prosecutor to take over the case and decide whether to pursue it. That process could be delayed if Fani Willis decides to appeal to the state Supreme Court and tries to get back on the case. President-elect Trump told Fox moments ago, quote, "Whole case has been a disgrace to justice, and that should not be allowed to go any further." Phil Holloway, former assistant district attorney, former Georgia police officer, and legal advisor to Georgia's Sheriff's Department. So you know that state, you know its legal system. Fani Willis, talk to me about what they saw outside of what we all knew.
Well, Harris, you know, the statement or the part of the opinion that you referenced in the lead regarding there's no other remedy that will suffice is, I think, the very best and most important language in this opinion, because the appearance of impropriety, as the courts note, is oftentimes not enough. But this is the case because, look, this is the one that has the elected district attorney, taking lots of taxpayer money, funneling it to her admitted paramour, and then benefiting from that financial arrangement by virtue of all the romantic trips and the getaways and all of those things. So if it's not a direct kickback, it certainly has the smell of potentially a kickback. And her testimony, of course, they said had the odor of mendacity, which means that nobody believed her testimony when she tried to explain this. But it's more than the conflict of interest with Nathan Wade. This is also about what we call forensic misconduct. There's out-of-court statements where Ms. Willis goes into the well of a local church here in Fulton County, Georgia, which is full of potential voters and full of potential jurors, by the way, I might add. And she maligns and impugns the various defendants out in a very public way. Prosecutors are not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to try their case, so to speak, on the courthouse steps, nor in the well of a church. This is something that was actually predicted. I predicted this outcome. She can appeal it to the Georgia Supreme Court, but I've got news for her. The Georgia Supreme Court is not going to take this case. It's discretionary. They don't have to do it, and they won't. They are going to affirm the Court of Appeals, and this case is going to be effectively over because the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia is not going to be able to find another DA if they wanted to, Harris, that wants to take this monstrosity.
Is that the only issue with this case? Because, you know, that can change. People can come in and out of those jobs and so on and so forth. Is there anything else inherently true about this case that would get it dismissed at this point?
The former President-elect Trump has asked the Court of Appeals to dismiss the case. And of course, in this opinion, they said, look, this is not, this doesn't rise to the level of dismissal. That's a separate issue. Now, there's other requests being made of the courts on the grounds of presidential immunity and that sort of thing. But this effectively kills the case, Harris. It's an orphan indictment. It's now going to be an indictment without a prosecutor. And the Prosecuting Attorneys Council is not going to find any other DA that wants this. Look, they'd have to shut down their whole office, and they'd have to, just for this case, basically shut down all of their operations. They would have to redo everything that she did and try to fix the problems that she created. It's not going to happen.
All right, I want to get to this. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin is pushing back on sanctuary cities in his state. Watch this.
If any state adopts a sanctuary practice, meaning a practice that impedes communications and cooperations when an illegal immigrant who commits a crime in Virginia and is detained and is subject to an ICE detainer, if they don't comply, they should lose their funding.
We have watched as at least 5 Democrat-led cities have reinforced and enhanced their sanctuary policies in defiance of President-elect Trump and his plans to deport illegal immigrants, particularly criminals first. But San Diego could be facing another major roadblock. The county sheriff is not having it. And after the city adopted its new policy designed to stop jails from working with ICE, she said, quote, "The Board of Supervisors does not set policy for the sheriff's office. The sheriff has the sole and exclusive authority to operate the county jails," end quote. Last week, I spoke with a Republican city council member.
I think this is a knee-jerk reaction to Trump, and even with Newsom trying to double down on, trying to Trump-proof the state. Yeah. They say it's about breaking up families. Well, if these people hadn't committed the crimes, we wouldn't be in this place. So it's more about criminals and making sure we deport criminals.
So here's what's happening. There's now a major constitutional showdown forming between the sanctuaries and the incoming administration. Phil, I go right to you for your thoughts on this.
Yeah, as a former deputy sheriff, I can tell you that the policy set by the sheriff in San Diego, and look, it's not just San Diego, California. Sheriffs across the country are going to do the same thing, I predict. When local law enforcement and federal law enforcement are not working together, when they're working perhaps at cross purposes, it only serves, well, it disserves the community. That's what it does. It doesn't do anything to promote the public good, the public welfare, the peace and the tranquility and the lawfulness of the local jurisdictions. And so you're going to see local sheriffs doing the right thing, regardless of local policymakers. And look, it's talking about the power of the purse. Even the federal government here has some room to operate. The federal government can cut off funding for lots of these jurisdictions and perhaps cities or counties, sheriff's offices, police agencies that get federal grants and federal funding. The power of the purse is very, very powerful. And I think over time, we're going to see more and more of the local law enforcement leaders doing the right thing, regardless of what their local officials might otherwise want them to do.
I mean, what you're talking about is a little bit of that Doge working its way into the legislative side of things. Yeah, that attitude of where can we cut and make it more efficient. Great to see you, Phil Holloway. Always appreciate your time and your expertise.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.